Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to peel back the curtain and uncover the hidden structural blueprints of the entire digital world, information architecture. Trust me, once you understand this invisible framework, it's going to completely change how you look at the apps and websites you interact with every single day. I mean, think about your own experiences for a second. Have you ever clicked in frustrating, endless circles just trying to find a simple Contact Us page, asking yourself, where is the information? We've all been there, right? It's a universal experience. When a digital ecosystem fails to answer that basic question, how things are organized and how you can actually access them quickly, the entire system just breaks down. So, today, we are breaking down this master blueprint into 5 key areas. We'll look at the blueprint of the web, the core systems of IA, the 8 rules of architecture, the 6-step building process, and finally, we'll wrap up with how IA actually compares to UX and UI. All right, let's pour our digital foundation right now with Section 1, the blueprint of the web. Imagine walking into a massive library where the books are just dumped randomly on the floor. Unusable, right? Well, that is exactly what the internet would be without information architecture. At its core, information architecture, or IA, is the systematic structuring, organizing, and labeling of digital spaces. Whether we're talking about a massive corporate database, a sleek software program, or that modern mobile app you use every day, IA is literally the invisible skeleton holding the whole thing together so you can efficiently complete your tasks without tearing your hair out. Now, this discipline rests firmly on 3 foundational pillars. First up, the users. We have to deeply analyze their behaviors, their demographic tasks, and what they actually need. Second is content. We have to account for the sheer volume of data, the different document types, and the vast catalogs we have to house. And third, context. Because let's face it, your architecture absolutely must align with the company's business goals, their available funding, and any tech constraints. If any single one of these 3 pillars is out of whack, the whole structure collapses. So why does all this matter to you or a business? Because minimizing navigational friction aids in swift information recovery, and that translates directly into boosting a business's conversion goals and keeping users coming back. Good IA isn't just about making things look nice and tidy. It is a massive strategic advantage. It actively prevents user drop-off and guarantees that your system can scale smoothly as your company grows. Okay, let's examine the framing and signage in Section 2, Core Systems of IA. You see, information architecture doesn't just magically happen by throwing data onto a server. It requires coordinating 4 deeply integrated functional systems working in total harmony to organize and retrieve data. You have to intentionally design each one if you want the whole ecosystem to thrive. Think of it like a grocery store. If it had no aisles, that's a digital space without organization. To build a usable space, you first need organization. That's your structural layout, like a top-down hierarchy. Next up is intuitive labeling. This is what ensures a button just says "Contact Us" instead of using some confusing internal company jargon. Then you need clear navigation to provide explicit pathways. Think breadcrumb trails showing exactly where you've been. And finally, a robust search system, complete with query boxes and predictive auto-suggestions for when users just want to skip the menus entirely. Let's see how this all operates in the real world in Section 3, the 8 rules of architecture. Let's take a look at the first 4 principles in practice. The principle of objects treats content, like a news article, as a living, auto-updating asset. Choices is all about preventing cognitive overload, which is exactly why a main menu should ideally be restricted to just 5 to 7 links. Then there's disclosure, which is why you only see a brief text snippet paired with a Read More button. It gives you just enough detail to anticipate what's next without totally overwhelming you. And exemplars relies on things like product thumbnails to visually explain a broader category, like new arrivals. Now, another absolutely crucial principle here is front doors. You have to assume a user might bypass your homepage entirely through an organic web search, dropping straight onto a specific product checkout page. Because of this, the site must make sense from absolutely any entry point. We also have multiple classification, which allows users to find things via a global search bar, a filter, or a category menu. As for focus navigation, this is a strict reminder to never mix unrelated things like core content and advanced filters in the exact same sidebar. And finally, growth. This principle mandates a scalable layout that won't just break the second you add new categories next year.
So, knowing all those rules, how do we actually build the thing? Let's get into Section 4, the 6-step building process.
This satisfying six-step process is what takes a product from a rough idea to a highly usable reality. It kicks off with initial user surveys and exhaustive content audits. Once we really understand the audience and the sheer volume of data, we conceptualize the structure, grouping things logically. Only then do we actually design the concrete navigation menus. Finally, we standardize these blueprints in the prototyping phase and put them through rigorous remote usability testing to guarantee that the architecture actually holds up in the hands of real everyday users. Of course, digital architects need a robust tool belt to pull this off. For card sorting and analysis, teams usually turn to software like OptimalSort and Miro. When it's time to get into wireframing and prototyping, Figma, Balsamiq, and Adobe XD are pretty much the industry standards. Structural site mapping utilizes tools like glue maps or SlickPlan. And to actually quantify that final usability testing step we just talked about, builders rely heavily on remote testing platforms like Maze and user testing.
Finally, it's time for the interior design phase. Section 5, IA versus UX versus UI. It is so easy to confuse these disciplines, but think of it this way. IA is the underlying structural database taxonomy and layout. It's the skeleton. UX, or user experience, on the other hand, is the overarching psychological and behavioral map, basically the brain of the operation. UX cares deeply about friction and workflow efficiency. Put simply, IA organizes the raw data so that the UX can successfully guide human behavior right through it.
So building an effective digital product ultimately comes down to a really simple formula. It starts with the information architecture framework. That structure then becomes an integrated user experience, which is finally polished off by the user interface aesthetics, the layout optics, the colors, and the branding components. They are three very distinct but highly cooperative disciplines. Keeping this invisible master blueprint in mind, what structural decisions are you going to notice the very next time you open up your favorite app?